Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to have with us an expert, Dr. Shirish Karande. Let's listen to him. Over to you, Dr. Karande.
Yes, well, thank you. When somebody gives you a format where you have that complete open canvas to decide what you want to talk about, uh, very strangely, for all the talk of freedom of expression or everything, it actually stumps you, right? And that is perhaps because uh, we live in times where, though we talk a lot about creativity and self-expression, sometimes we don't know what it really means, what it has meant, how we have pursued it, and if we really get it, what it's going to land up becoming. Correct. So there is, over the next hour, I would like to sort of share a bit about my journey in research, some key points when I sort of came back and on. But perhaps I would like to sort of, with the fear of missing out, kick it off with what is really up my mind uh, nowadays, like what sort of consumes me. Okay. So like everybody, I've been playing around with these all these chat GPT type Gen AI models. And I also do research in them and publish, right? But I also sort of think about them philosophically, right? Uh, so one of the sort of constant debates about how AI should affect our society has been this debate that is it AI for automation or is it AI for augmentation? And if I'm just using AI for uh, augmentation, is it in some ways an inferior goal? Does it really sort of uh, not take us to its full potential and all these? And if it's AI with augmentation, how is it any different from AI from automation? These are all questions that really need fairly nuanced thinking, in my opinion.
Could you just tell us what is augmentation? Because it's not a term everybody understands in the context of AI, including me.
Yeah, so uh, you could say an automation is that, let's say you're doing a piece of work, correct? And something just replaces that piece of work
Yeah.
in your step. Now, augmentation could be that, look, I'm not very good at mathematics or arithmetic, and the AI does calculations for me,
Yeah.
which in sense a calculator is a form of AI.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not very good at spellings.
Yeah.
Somebody does a grammar check for me, right?
Yes.
That's I am I want to communicate to an audience which is, let's say, Hindi speaking.
Yeah.
I can only formulate
Yeah.
humor in English.
Hmm.
So my satire, my humor in English, is there an AI which can translate it to
Yeah.
Hindi, Thai, or any other language? But even fancier augmentation is when somebody can nudge you into critical thinking, or do a bit of critical thinking on your behest, leaving the decision still with you. Uh, Something that can co-create with you,
Hmm.
right? Versus just sort of
Hmm.
being a generator,
Hmm.
right? So I give an instruction, it just generates an image. That's not really co-creativity. So some people
Yeah.
claim it to be co-creativity,
Yeah.
correct? So that to me is a AI augmentation versus just a button press. And we are living in a world where sort of it's AI for AI, of AI, made for AI,
Okay.
sort of world, correct? And I'll tell you very frankly, I started thinking I mean, I'll dwell on this a bit, but I started thinking very profoundly about this almost back in 2019, I think. Okay. When actually I was looking at AI human augmentation in a very different context.
Yeah.
Uh, I was actually at that time working on building a crowdsourcing platform.
Yeah.
And I was, for quite a few years, I was building a crowdsourcing platform. And the purpose of that platform was both A, to sort of get annotations to train machine learning algorithms, but also to sort of like, uh, sort of split the work between machines as they learn,
Mm,
uh, uh, people who are sort of full-time working with you, and some form of elastic or volunteer labor.
mm,
So
mm,
there I had to really sort of think like what can is like, as a machine is learning, what is it capable of, what work goes to human, and what work goes to humans of different capability. So I had started pondering on this already at that time when probably LLMs were not even on the horizon because
yeah.
BERT came in 2019. Uh, but I sort of at that time that we were about to sort of set up some sort of a design collaboration with a school in Europe. Okay, I won't
Mm,
name it. We didn't set up the collaboration, but it was around AI and ethics. All right, and everybody, even now, seems to when they talk about AI and ethics, they seem to talk about things like mostly like bias, okay, or unsafe decisions, like really if it's a robot or something like that. Uh, and those are very important from a pure safety perspective. But I landed up thinking of ethics at a much deeper level and wanted to sort of take that up as a problem with a design school. And the influence for me at that time was this book called Man's Search for Meaning. Okay.
mhm,
So I've read glimpses of the book. It's about a psychologist who was at Auschwitz. And he claimed that, sort of unlike others, what really kept him going was hope. He had something to look forward to when he sort of got out. So if you think about us humans, okay, whether it's a healthy thing to do or not, I don't know. But at least in modern times, many of us draw our identity, our self-worth from the work we do.
yeah.
Okay? We have a lot of pride on it. A lot of our colleagues are at work.
Yeah.
Uh, we feel good about us. We feel
Mm,
capable of
mm,
it, depending on what work we do. So work gives us meaning, right? It is where we also self-express, and it's not necessarily very self-actualized work. I have seen
mm,
people working even in what you may consider as menial jobs. They find that they are they do it at much dexterity than what you might think is a very straightforward job, and they draw a lot of meaning from it. Now, if we land up working in a world where uh, AI just robs us of all of it, right? It may not necessarily be this fantastic world where all of us are on the beach, sipping some pina colada and watching dolphins jump
yeah.
around, uh, while the AI is doing all the hard work everywhere. It in terms of psychologically how we think about it, it may not really land up becoming like that. I mean, let's leave aside all issues of income redistribution and
Mm,
everything like
mm,
that.
mm,
It may not, it may not really be like that, and we are not necessarily close to that world. Also, I mean, AI is probably not that strong. But even if we get there, there are other issues which are not pure technological issues, right? Which one perhaps needs to worry about, correct? So that actually sort of has been for the past year again, sort of due to serendipity, how I landed up at jobs. And this has been a history of my sort
mm,
of research. I'm like a cog in the wheel. The wheel
mhm,
spins. I find myself in a problem and
mhm.
find the right partners, and we're thinking
Right,
about
right,
it.
right,
It's
right.
fun and I found some partners who are interested in creativity. I found myself in the midst of projects related to creativity. I started uh, pondering about it. So I'm midst of some very fantastic colleagues who very honestly have thought about this issue longer than me.
Mm.
There's this field of computational creativity. There is this field of art for wellness. There are ways by which even scientific endeavor, even mathematical endeavor can be thought of as creativity. And currently, we really ponder on this as to if I am to build AI in this sort of broad landscape of problems, then what should it be like?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it really starts, the sub problems emerge, and it
Yeah.
really starts deviating a lot from what you can say the first generation of these Gen AI models have been. If you
Yeah.
think of these first generation of AI models,
Mm.
they are really uh, sort of the hope really has been productivity gain.
Mhm.
Okay, that I instruct and sort of like you will do as much of the work you will automatically complete as possible. Correct?
Yeah.
That seems to be have been the sort of like the inspiration for it. But even if you think in terms of intelligence, like for example, if I have two very young twins, they're like 17-month old,
Yeah.
right now, and we are like constantly wondering at the smallest advancement that they show.
Yeah.
And instruction following, of course, makes us proud, but sometimes we are even more prouder when they show a little bit of, a naughtiness, which is not exactly instruction following, or
Correct.
defiance,
Yeah.
or persuasiveness. So
Yes.
that actually signs of agency in terms of intelligence,
Yeah.
in terms of partnership,
Yeah.
correct? Work in teams. Uh, if you have someone who follows your instruction and does a job brilliantly, yes, it's
Yeah.
good to have a team member
Yeah.
who does something.
Yeah.
But even more brilliant work is when somebody tangos with you,
Yeah.
right? Like in a tango dance, both are, you don't have just somebody
Yeah.
leading, right?
Yeah.
So if somebody pushes back, gives you ideas, that's or waits for you to think and doesn't just complete, that is much more fun, correct?
Yeah.
So I think the current set of AI lands up being too verbose. It completes too much. It doesn't allow uh, a human a sense of ownership of what is being generated. Self-expression can get robbed. So you will see, and I think a little bit of my suspicion has happened with this latest release in what they call as 4.5, but we don't know what exactly has happened, and you will see more and more of it happening, where uh, what they will be optimizing is not just the AI auto-completing, but this human-machine bundle. What together they can land up achieving, correct? Can the AI sort of help human do critical thinking, or can it take the right pauses so that
Mm-hmm.
human can steer it more and it doesn't just sort of jump the gun and start generating everything. Okay.
Yeah.
You have the right interfaces, and its text is not the interface to give you the right editorial touches. I
Yeah.
think a lot of these things will happen.
Yeah.
And this is, in my opinion, the more sort of, for me, the more interesting of the alignment problem. So everybody's talked about alignment. So AI alignment is this broadly said that you want AI to follow, align with the human values.
Yeah.
Okay, but they have just posed this as a uh, safety problem.
Yeah.
Okay, being worried about, oh, it should not have any abuses, it should not take any actions which are unsafe and all. But I think it's a far more than that. Alignment is a sort of a coexistence problem. Okay, and in a creative setting, it's a co-creativity problem. How do you work along such that it's a plus plus, right? And not sort of like, you are replacing or you're just taking away all the work or something like that. So
Yeah.
for me, working on alignment problems for co-creativity sort of is a very a problem which is very dear to my heart. We One of my colleagues is looking at these issues in code drawing, for example,
Yeah.
and someone else is looking at this in terms of text writing. Someone else
Yeah.
is looking at this in terms of music and things like that. And I kind of keep going back and forth because I have this experience during crowdsourcing, right? There we wanted to sort of like, uh, get translation done
Yeah.
with crowdsourcing and with machines,
Yeah.
right? And what we did was we thought that, look, instead of asking people to do translations directly,
Yeah.
why don't we get sort of Google or Microsoft Bing translations
Yeah.
and have humans edit them?
Yeah.
Turns out that many humans were like, said we prefer to directly do the translation
Right.
than edit it. So that was a very, crisp lesson.
Yeah.
And recently there are some studies which are showing the same thing about code agents, that many people prefer coding directly rather than editing.
Yeah.
So that's a very crisp lesson that making AI plus human greater
Yeah.
than just AI or greater than some just human is not a trivial problem.
Yeah.
It's a very delicate problem, and I
Yeah.
don't think this is solved, and it's up my mind.
So,
But when you
Sirish, let me just come in here for a second. I
Mm,
I have a similar opinion about translation because I always think, why can't I have my work translated into, say, Hindi, Marathi, and so on, right? And whenever I look at the translation and then I have to edit it, I'm saying, look, this is not going to work. I'm going to ask a human being to edit it because the flow is not natural so far. The flow is not
yes,
natural, and the translation is still mechanical. It feels like a translation. It has no soul. It has no. What I write has soul. I mean, though it's professional and technical and all, I think it has soul, so to speak. There is something to it that conveys the idea. And then when you read the now for small things, yes, translation is wonderful. You just want a small part to be translated, so then it's fine. You get the exact answer. But then that's a small part. Once you
yeah,
have a paragraph or something like that, you want it translated, then you have to edit the damn thing. It feels like, okay, this is not worth it. And
yeah.
it's not going to, replace my time because it's a mess that somebody else has created it and I'm fixing it.
I'm
Right?
I'm I'm very glad that you are pinpointing this,
Yeah.
because nowadays there's this perception
Yeah.
that all problems are solved,
Yeah.
right? And in many cases we are nowhere close,
No.
right? So translation being an example, especially in a creative setup,
Yeah.
it is not a mechanistic translation simply doesn't do it.
No.
Okay, you are actually taking a piece of expression,
Yeah.
bringing it down to thought, essence, and the emotion, and you want it to be re-expressed.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want it to be re-expressed under constraints. So, for
Yes.
example, if I'm translating, let's say a song
Yeah.
in a movie, the the music and all has already set up the meter, and you know
Yes.
that you want to translate, but it has to still fit into that little timing,
Yes.
right? If I'm sort of dubbing in another language, I want to translate, but I still don't want to mess around too much with the movement so that it still appears natural.
Yeah.
If it's a banner advertisement I'm translating, I still have the fixed layout,
Yeah.
and I want to only move pieces. So this is a deeply, in my opinion, difficult problem,
It
and I
is.
still it's unsolved, and it is one of those media problems which I think like still needs attention, because I mean um, both I mean I'll diverge a little bit, but I will and we'll do this a little bit. I mean
Yeah.
we'll go back and come back. Uh, See, info, information is, despite all the digitization story and whatever we are seeing, information, whether it's for the purpose of marketing and advertising,
Yeah.
and commercial people will be interested in that,
Yeah.
or it's in terms of education, governance, it's not reaching everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. And language is a real issue over there. We tend to think in terms of language very discreetly, in the sense that that's okay, there are 113 language or 1,000 dialects and so on.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, every individual has its own language.
Yeah.
Correct. So,
Yeah.
for example, Marathi, for example, there are people who say pudhe,
Yeah.
which is go ahead, and the same word is pronounced as fude with a f, which is a wrong thing by some people.
Yeah.
So, if there is a way by which this whole thing can get personalized, and that power exists today within us in AI in terms of the technology, but we are really somewhere getting sort of lost in data sets and all those kind of things, versus really looking at that this is a communication design problem.
Yeah.
You really need to get the information to the last mile and help them understand in whatever limitations, whether it's cognitive limitation, language limitations, device limitations that they may have. And you want to get the information to them. That's how it needs to be thought out. Why this you touched about and I decided to diverge is because
let me also bring in 2 points later, but please go ahead.
Is because this was my first problem.
Yeah.
When I came back to India many, many years ago, and I wanted to do something for language translation.
Yeah.
In fact, I wanted to do, we call that project Bhagirath.
Yeah.
Very philosophically, because as if knowledge is being brought down, and we had these sort of studies which showed that schools which don't have libraries have something like a 7% dropout rate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if people don't graduate, we had a way of mapping it to the over lifetime, what is the loss to national income?
Yeah.
Correct. And it came out to be in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
So you couldn't build libraries everywhere.
Yeah.
We thought that if there was a way to make Wikipedia get quickly translated in all languages, and I'm talking about almost a decade back, right?
Yeah.
All languages are not supported.
Right? Yeah. Right.
So what could we do? Right?
Yeah.
And that's when we sort of explored that current tech for language translation is not good enough. And we thought we could crowdsource it, and we will crowdsource it for rural India. And we built a whole bunch of things at that time. That was the first sort of project. So, and I realized things have improved a lot, but I don't think it's a solved problem by sort of any measure. Things still sort of continue, right? So you had more points.
Yeah, let me just come in with 2 examples. Okay, I'm not going to do the theory. These days on Netflix, they are desperate for more shows. So they take shows from every country and dub them.
Yeah.
The dubbing is very good. Okay, this is sort of state of the art, very good technically. But when you see a show, I understand Hindi, Marathi, and so on. But when you see them speak in English, they don't talk like that. Right? Right? It's not real. That's not how these people talk, because then you translate it into a way that the non-native is going to listen, right? Because you're translating it, say, for the American audience. And so then when you translate it, you translate the way the people speak into the way Americans speak.
Yes.
Okay, that's one point. Second point is that if you watch, you mentioned songs. On some of the songs, they simply give up.
Yes.
And what they do is they write another song, and it is sung by somebody else altogether with the, let us say, the American style of singing or whatever, which conveys the same sentiments, but there's no translation. You take the spirit of that song, write another song in the American way, sing it in the American way, and you can say that's what's happening here. But
Yes.
you're bored at night and you're watching it, so you don't object. But you notice it that this is not a solved problem. If Netflix cannot handle it, that means, and they are now for revenue. Now they are desperate to have international content because there's only so much that can come out in.
So many issues. This is firstly an absolutely brilliant point.
Yeah,
Okay, and many thoughts sort of come up. So let me sort of elaborate on it. So the research area that I lead at TCS,
yeah,
I introduced myself. So I lead a research area there, and we have some 9, 10 research areas. And a lot of my background is, at least for the last decade, has been AI.
yeah,
I'll talk about the journey in a bit. But about a year back, I took over this media, and I'm at great pains sometimes, almost wanting to rename it as a mass communication area.
yeah,
Okay. But I'm AI, so I would probably call it AI and mass communication. The
yeah.
reason is that people sort of forget that the objective is communication. And
Yes,
I'm not talking communication systems as in wireless. It's
yes,
like how you have the communications department in humanities,
yes,
information design, and
yes,
the information should get communicated.
yes,
People kind of just simply forget that. Now, when we say information or the emotion has to get communicated, language is not just text.
yes,
It is the prosody, it is a prosody in it, it is the body language in it, it is the
yeah,
cultural context in it, and there is an artist intent
yes,
which is getting expressed through all of this.
yes,
Now, the greatest fidelity has to be with the artist intent,
yes,
correct? The rest of these are only vehicles for that expression. So if you change context, right, you change culture, for example, gone from India to US, your fidelity should not be to the form, which is text
yes,
or tone or something like, with that increasing
yeah,
knowledge.
yeah,
Your greatest rule should be fidelity to what was the artist's intent
mm,
in doing something else.
yeah,
So, for example, if let's say fire
yeah,
is a pious thing in India,
mm,
but it's considered, I don't know, devil worship somewhere else,
yes,
then you're just miscommunicating
yes,
the intent. Or swastika is
yes,
considered pious in India while
yeah,
it's associated with Nazis somewhere else.
right,
And sure, it's just miscommunicating the intent completely,
yeah,
right? And this is, how do I say, even in the current project that we are sort of we are collaborating with the museum in doing creative experiences. Okay, and to think of ethics over there
yeah,
has been a wonderful educational journey.
yeah,
Correct. For example, there has been temptation to sort of like do generative AI, like generate in the style of Picasso,
yeah,
generate in the style of Da Vinci, or something like
yes,
that, right?
yes,
But when somebody talks of ethics,
yeah,
or you might have seen some of these, art experiences where things start moving in the
yeah,
picture. Right? The question that is raised is that, was this what the artist intended?
yes,
So by showing it differently, uh, how correct it is, how not correct it is, and all. You may still want to do it because it engages people,
yeah,
right? It still brings in, a younger generation, it brings it in and makes them contemplate. But
yeah,
you land building now these creative experience far more consciously.
yeah,
Uh, you also are forced to think about that art or cave drawings or now what is the modern media. These are all forms of media.
mm,
Uh, what effect it is having
yeah,
uh, on an individual, because there's
yeah,
a when you say there is a intent to communicate and there is an intended effect.
yes,
Not all artists do that. Some artists were really free, they did that and let everybody interpret it. But
yes,
there was also some form of art a deliberate intent to communicate.
yes,
So so you when you start thinking in terms of effect on people, that is also something we think about. Like, for example, we think, as I said, these creative experiences we build, we want people to have fun with it all. But we also like think in terms of, is this some form of like wellness? Like there's a colleague of mine who really worries about music and wellness and
Yes.
art and wellness and
Yes.
creativity and wellness and things
Yes.
like that.
Yeah.
So this is I always, and I'm sort of almost humbled for learning these things from you.
Yeah.
Because you think in terms of creativity in art, you suddenly have this stakeholder where someone is the consumer, someone is the doer,
Yeah.
and there's a wellness problem on both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, there will be a wellness of the consumer that is getting affected, but there's a wellness angle of the creator also. And this notion of which I'll go back, circle back to the right of the star. Okay, this notion of having self-expression, or
Yeah.
this notion of me being a owner of what I'm creating, correct,
Yeah.
gives me a sense of agency,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Makes me feel that I'm not like, dismissed off.
Right.
And that is what sort of the, for a lot of lack of better term, the kick that we are looking at when we
Yeah.
are doing our work or doing creative. We should
Right.
not get robbed of it.
Right.
Whether we are doing it ourselves, when we are doing co-creativity,
Yeah.
or it's crucial.
Yeah.
That doesn't sort of go away. I guess the only place sort of where I think slightly differently about this, okay, is I'm doing a lot on creativity, and I'll let that take us to sort of different stories of my life, but because that's something that I'm really consumed about. Okay. So I think the only place where I think about this differently is when we are doing creative expression in science.
Yeah.
And I'll come to that. But before I come to that, I think I will take a slight deviation to talk about today's a little bit of anecdote, because I still wanted to talk a bit more on the ethics
Yeah.
of creativity.
Yeah.
Somebody sent me a link today saying that the US government has given sort of like, passed some executive orders saying that OpenAI doesn't have to be bothered about copyright anymore. And then he said that no, this is just an April
Full joke.
full joke.
Yeah.
I mean, I just got this message like
Yeah.
5 minutes before we got
Yeah.
on this
Yeah.
podcast. So
Yeah.
I don't know what is the real thing, but this issue of sort of ownership of creativity,
Yeah.
has been an old issue for and hence we had copyright law, hence we had patent law,
Yeah.
and so on something. So I think there should be a profound discussion on how we go about this,
Yes.
and we hopefully are not just sort of like, there could be very compelling reasons like national security and why people may want to temporarily ignore it, but so that technology development happens. But I think this is something that needs to be thought carefully.
Yes.
And it is possible to develop good technology, right? One of my, like there's I won't, without permission, I won't use names here. But there's a
Right.
really smart professor in India who I've had the fortune to collaborate with right now, and he works in an area of unlearning. Right?
Yeah.
So this allows you to sort of so we all know what machine learning is. We sort of we've been training models. What happens is that when you spend millions in training models, if you realize that by accident you have learned something that you are not supposed to, for example, copyright data,
Yeah.
it comes and you cannot like redo the entire thing.
Yeah.
Correct. So what can we do? Is there a way we can unlearn
Yeah.
specific things? So there are ways by which now techniques are emerging where you can unlearn, and that would be
Yeah.
good for protection of copyright, safety, and generally saving a lot of money in sort of editing these models versus training from scratch. Correct. So that is just something, a comment I wanted to make before I
Yeah.
sort of move on to sort of co-creativity in science.
Yeah.
I guess that's one place where I think it's still important because we're still not sure whether the ideas that AI will generate or what it will do are really going to be extrapolative. They're very going to be very different from what we call as just what do you call combinatorial research, like composing two ideas and coming up with a new idea. So humans will still, if we think humans are capable, some percentage of humans we think are capable of really original thought, especially those guys probably who do Fields medals and stuff like that and develop completely new notation. I think a lot of scientists, at least even in top tier
Yeah.
uh, uh, machine learning venues, I think do interpolative research. So interpolative
Yeah.
research is still very important, and
Yeah.
AI can do. I think why it is okay over there for AI to become a little autonomous because of the purpose. And if you can advance science quickly, then some civilizational goals,
Yeah.
right? Like getting better sources of energy, better batteries, space exploration, uh, longevity and quality of life, correct?
Yeah.
All these issues, there's a greater purpose there. And if you can get a quicker solution, then I think we should, correct?
Yeah.
So as far as uh, AI for science is concerned, I think still co-creativity is important there because we've not reached a point of auto science. But I think one of my interests is definitely building,
Yeah.
uh, doing some sort of auto science. Okay.
Okay.
And in that, even things like, I mean, because I'm a machine learning scientist, of course, auto ML and stuff come in. But I've been fortunate enough to sort of have collaborators who do lot of computational physics,
Yeah.
computational physics,
Yeah.
chemistry, computational biology,
Yeah.
and my origin and even optimization, if you want to call
Yeah.
operations the separate form of science. I've been fortunate enough to have collaborations on this, my own interest in physics from childhood, and my own, apart from, let's say, computer science, my background in mathematical optimization interest.
Yeah.
So I've been publishing a little bit in this direction. I've been publishing in sort of actually doing simulations also, right?
Yeah.
One is how quickly can we do the simulations versus having to what you call actually do the experiment. So there is one is envisioning an experiment,
Yeah.
coming up with a new hypothesis,
Yeah.
in a whole bunch of knowledge, right? Which is so you do science, you would do a literature survey
Hmm.
on the basis that you would think of an interesting hypothesis, and now you would design an experiment and do that experiment. Why do that experiment in always in a wet lab when you can actually simulate that experiment, learn
Right.
from the
Right.
experiment,
Right.
and repeat?
Okay.
Now this is very, very promising.
Yeah.
So with some of my colleagues, we individually published papers where we sort of putting this all together. This is something that excites me uh, immensely. If I would love to do this for AI too,
Yeah.
but for a totally different reason,
Yeah.
which is for me, the ultimate risk in AI is if AI sort of figures out how to constantly self-improve,
Yeah.
right? And if so, sometimes I do projects not because I think they are the best thing to do for humanity, but I would firsthand want the experience,
Yeah.
know how feasible something is, so that I know I have a sense of the risk.
Yeah.
Correct. So one such project was actually building sort of like a cognitive architecture of LLMs
Yeah.
to do persuasion. I did a
Yeah.
podcast before also, and I'm not sure this is this is a great thing to do. Maybe it is, maybe not. I'm not sure because
Yeah.
persuasion is there anywhere. But an AI which is just exceptionally capable of like fine-tuning persuasion just for you to the point where you almost cannot say no. I'm not sure that is something that is desirable. We played around and we see what is feasible and we want to do experiments with it. Similarly, I am really keen on if it is possible to sort of build this sort of engine which automatically reads up papers and sort of thinks of ways and of itself becoming better at reading papers and rewiring it, almost like LLMs, which figure out ways to self-improve, retrain themselves,
Right.
and right. So this is something that I think I'm sure better equipped labs are also thinking about. So this is something that fascinates me. So I mean, I went in all these directions, but starting from, in some sense, you can say the creativity,
Okay.
and
Can I
yeah,
come in on one thing that I just learned recently? And that is related to science. Okay. This is uh, the example is this, that there's a 39-year-old man in the US. The doctors have given up. So listen, you have 2 or 3 months, okay, max. No treatment works. Then his girlfriend writes to a professor at University of Pennsylvania, whom she has met. These people he has a rare disease. Now there's
yeah,
nobody doing research on rare disease because there's no market.
yeah,
Even in academic terms, it's not there. But there are people, so she writes to him and he says, look, we have been developing an ML model which is designed to write a new prescription of medicines. Okay,
mm,
so he sends her back next day that look, this is the existing medicines, not new medicines. From the existing medicines, try this combination.
mm,
Okay, she gives it to the doctor who says, well, the guy is going to die anyway. Let's try it. Okay.
mm,
So that this story is 1 year later, the guy's healthy.
mm,
He responded within days. And this is really not the only place. What they are doing is, I mean, look, I don't understand ML the way everybody else does, but essentially they're combing the side effects of medicines,
yes,
seeing how we can turn those side effects into the main effect and combine. So it's ML, okay?
yes, and it's
It's
pretty
straight
strong.
ML. But looking at the side effects, if I can understand in my very layman's language, you look at the side effects, and there are 4 or 5 places in the US cited in that article, and they are saying, look, there's gold in these old medicines.
Yes,
We just have focused on not searching the database intelligently. No human being can search the database. You
yeah,
need some, and we have trained the models. Obviously, you can't just write a search today. So
yeah,
these are specialized ML models
yes,
for this purpose.
yes,
And I
absolutely.
think I mean, look, we are moving towards specialized ML. This is basically, I mean, look, I don't know these things because I'm still an economist and doing economics things, but
No, no, no. So
it's
I mean, the
fascinating that
drug,
there
drug
are
discovery, either fresh discovery or repurposing, is definitely
repurposing.
fascinating, very
It's
fascinating.
repurposing. It's
Yes, it's very
repurposing.
fascinating.
It's total repurposing. I mean, and we
Yeah,
also know the new medicines like, Monjaro, Wegovy, they're all repurposed. Okay. But
yes,
this is repurposing done with ML.
yes, very
And
fascinating.
then you can call it, I call it applied research. It's not research, academic research, it's applied research. And I think that's where, even in the field of science, like chemistry, you know, good chemists are partly intuitive,
Yeah,
right? It's intuition. But what if you don't have the intuition? What if the ML can give you 10 proposals and then intuitively you pick from there instead of, anyway, sorry to
yeah.
talk too much, but
No, no. I mean, these are very uh, you can say very valid new research protocols,
yeah,
uh, and where ML finds the candidates for you, and the human intuitively sort of the scientist picks and follows a certain path. Or a human, vice versa is also true, that a human scientist sort of defines the constraints and the search space, and ML sort of looks within that search space rather than looking everywhere.
Right.
And there is research being done on what should be the research protocol itself in the new era. Like just before you got on, you were saying that as new technology comes, you don't take a camera and shoot in a theater. You just do things differently.
Right.
Maybe there are some processes themselves have to be sort of reimagined. So research itself has become a research area in some sense.
How do you do research?
How to do research in this new, and it's pretty exciting topic in my opinion. And I think that's one place where sort of it's another example of co-creativity in my opinion, which sort of interests. Me. Now, I guess I guess what say these fantastic problems, right? So why don't we just go solve them, right? So I think I should talk a bit about a bit of my journey and a little bit of the resilience and the anatomy of what a researcher has to sort of go through.
Correct? Let's do it.
So, for example, if all of us had MTurk scale crowd, or even more, all the experts you need for to interact with your AI, to do annotation, infinite number of AI engineers, and infinite number of compute, correct? Then you're probably in what might be researchers' heaven, correct? Though we say necessity is the mother of invention, but that is not true, correct? And one has to sort of work around, right? But so what are the things we land up working around in a day-to-day job, correct? You land up working around sort of data scarcity. Not everybody is flush with data. Or sometimes some places it may be fairly okay to work on some problems. In some places it may not be okay to work on some problems. So for you, like you may need a lot more permissions, or we don't like we are not allowed to scrape the web. For example, okay, just company policy, right? Scraping the web may be okay somewhere else, right? Sort of constraints, or there may be other legal constraints. You may have some level of compute constraints. You cannot work with it. So one sort of has to sort of be very sort of ingenious, okay, to overcome a lot of these sort of challenges. And in my experience, a lot of times this has led to innovation. Okay. So for example, I remember the very first deep learning paper we wrote. Right. We did it without any GPU. And the way we did it was we actually decided to make the neural network with a random weights to be a feature extractor. Right. And just whatever the features is, then we use a traditional technique on it. We did not have, let's say, data, for example. And my initial part, I made crowdsourcing itself my research. Legal issues, many times the questions we are trying to overcome itself becomes our research, right? How to do things with privacy, how to do something with copyright. Sometimes, see, there's a talent challenge also. Correct? Talent is also a resource. So how do we sort of, sometimes, I mean, the best talent, there's a battle out there. Correct? How do you train people quickly? Okay. Or help them with critical thinking. This, when I say AI for research, actually this becomes a problem statement for us
Yeah.
to solve itself. So many times the best, and I have to sort of motivate a lot of students working with me. Many times the exclusive challenges that you face in your research journey, correct, uh, can, if you are positive enough, can be looked upon as specialized opportunities to actually make a contribution.
Yeah.
And one can take this to an absolute extreme.
Yeah.
So for example, when I say resources, I said resources of time, resources of money, resources of sort of authority, and so on and so forth, resources in all form. The sort of the greatest resource constraint many times you may have is actually that of research freedom. Okay, because you
Yeah.
may be, you may you may be sort of may find yourself in a corner where you have to work on a specific problem, you cannot do something else, and so on and so forth. This is natural everywhere in the world. But I've seen that there also your creativity can come in and you can do fancy things. Like for example, I was at one point, let's say, working on AI for code, and for whatever reasons, I started working in AI for science and all. But whatever we learned in, let's say, uh, whatever program synthesis work I had learned in one place, I could actually suddenly apply the exactly same ideas for what we call as, governing equation discovery. Or just like, if there's a phenomenon, what is the equation that is governing this? Okay. Or if there's a problem, system of partial differential equations, what it is. The techniques that are used to generate codes or programs are exactly the techniques that can be used here in a more creative way with different constraints, right? Or you can actually generate a code for numerical software. So I think it's important for me to sort of like not miss out, if there's a younger audience thinking about it, that you will often in your sort of uh, scientific journey find yourself uh, almost distraught for not having the right resources.
Right.
And the right resources can be of any form. You don't have the right group, you don't have sufficient money, you don't have recognition, you don't have data, you don't have freedom. But if you sort of keep hope, correct, and allow your mind to be creative, you will be surprised as to how much you can still continue achieving and moving forward. And then the wheel of time turns. If you're still passionate about what you were at one point of time, then opportunity kind of presents itself to you. Okay. So that is something that I don't want anybody to, I think that's the romance of research in some ways, that if it comes to you easily, you would probably not you would not find it romantic uh, enough, right? So that is something that I would really like to kind of uh, get across to people.
Yeah.
And I mean, why I sort of abruptly deviated to this is because I think I mean you mentioned it at the start, right? That I should talk a little bit about the journey back
Yes.
to India, and a lot of people would be curious about it and stuff like that. So I think let me introduce myself finally.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So see, I got so I'm from Pune. Okay. I got I did my most of my education here. I went to bachelor's to there's a local college called MIT. I worked in electronics and telecommunications.
Yes.
Then went my master's and PhD at Michigan State. I was a postdoc for a while at UC Santa Cruz, and then I sort of came to India. But my journey to US and back, both were very incidental. Okay. So I've been interested in science for all right. A very close friend of mine went to Caltech when for his undergrad, and he sort of stayed in touch. And we used to read finance lectures at grade 7. We were all very fascinated by physics and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. So the decision to go do higher education was always there. It just so happened that I would have been very happy to get my education in India.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, I didn't really, nothing about the West fascinated me.
Right.
But when I went there, I did not have this thing that I'll go and live there. But something about the US education system was just very amazing. Like I had this habit of asking questions and I would kind of get beaten up for it. Would be considered too rebellious.
Yeah.
Or, this just flipped in the US. It was just like amazing. The diversity of people. I just landed up falling
Yeah.
in love.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Falling in love with every aspect of it, the
Yeah.
society, the freedom, the research I was getting to
Yeah.
do, the how the academic setup was,
Yeah.
what all you can do, everything. In fact, was my postdoc was through an ARO funding and all those kind of things. Okay. I was back after several years because my mom was like saying, look, beta tum वापस आ जाओ नहीं तो sorry for switching to Hindi but
Yeah, that's fine. We all know.
this can be only expressed like we said in the translation can be
Right.
only expressed in Hindi
Yeah.
हमारी शादी नहीं होगी okay
Uh,
so I came back after 5 years reluctantly and something was up in the State Department at the time and there's this thing called 221G
yeah.
okay and it just delays your visa forever.
Yeah.
My visa didn't get rejected, but that delay perhaps started making my sort of then employers, because I was a research professor postdoc, a little nervous.
Yeah.
This was the 2008 crash.
Yeah.
Then becoming nervous started making me nervous. And with pressure from home, we stay here, get a good job and stuff like that. I just sort of took a job.
Yeah.
My first job was in Bangalore, and it increasingly start feeling stupid.
Yeah.
That look, if I'm in India and if I'm not in my hometown, it makes little sense.
Yeah.
So the place where I work, TCS Research, I was very sort of fascinated by maths when we were a kid, and we had this sort of group which worked on maths undergrad.
Yeah.
So the current research head in TCS, Sachin Roda, he's one of India's first silver medalists and stuff like that.
Okay.
And Harrick, who's our CTO, he's an ex-Texas Australian professor.
Yeah.
Now, these two guys were here at TRDDC in Pune, and I got to know of this.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, if this place is good enough for them,
yeah, why not me?
I mean, it has to be good enough for me.
Yeah.
Correct?
Right.
Right? I mean, I just took a punt
Yeah.
basis that. And I came here. I took me, I don't think because of them, but it took me some adaptation. It took me some few years of adaptation. But I did some pretty fantastic things there, which probably I wouldn't have been able to do at other place. A definite intellectual influence also has been my previous researcher, Gautam Shroff, who introduced me to some topics in AI, which I don't think I would have come across if not for him, right? So tremendous gratitude to him. Our previous CTO, Anand Krishnan, amazingly motivational presence. So I just was fortunate enough to have great colleagues and great leaders over here who sort of made it great. And a lot of these then have societal benefit and also sort of India benefit, societal benefit as a motivation, and that's a shared motivation, I think. I mean, I won't say that we have GPU farms. I don't know whether I'll get in trouble for saying it, but I mean, that's a fact. Right? We don't have the GPU farms that OpenAI has. Right? But a lot of these other factors really sort of made it worth it for me. Uh, I There were times, very honestly, when I did consider quite literally running back. Okay, sometimes because I mean culturally I was just a misfit.
Yeah.
I was too I was too outspoken. I
Yeah.
think some people say I'm too outspoken even now. Like for example, I did a tattoo of my first project on my arm, and
Yeah.
the client said, "Dude, you don't do such things.
Mm,
Boy, you cannot be that flamboyantly
mm,
expressive."
mm.
Right? At times I felt running back because I think a lot of my friends were in New York and all, and the city life sort of, attracted me. But over time, things turned out quite great for me over here.
Yeah.
Yes, I think researchers sometimes, and because I'm sort of almost talking to my younger me, okay, can at times over intellectualize life. I think there's uh, no need to do that. And you
Mm.
can have a nice, good life and still do research,
Yeah.
right? I mean, don't there's no need to be that hard on uh, yourself,
Okay.
correct? And now I think the world is sort of really globalized.
Yeah.
Uh, there are so many things that can be done here. I do wish that I mean, having seen sort of what China is doing with the deep seek movement and all, I do wish that we collectively as a fraternity uh, challenge us ourselves to do more. Uh, I I would love to sort of I mean we collaborate with IITs, and we collaborate with the top universities world over. But
Yeah.
I would want sort of to spend part of my time to just collaborate with everybody, right? I mean, not just with the premium. And there is something to be thought about to be done on that front, which is sort of cooking in my head.
Yeah.
So I've seen. I mean, we still have few research labs. We don't have many research labs, right? Uh, uh, Not proportional to our population.
Yeah.
Okay, and there are more people capable of running research. So I know many even PhDs who are sort of in job roles which are not considered researchy. So they sort of do research on their free time.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Then I have a lot of colleagues who have retired right now
Yeah.
recently. But the way longevity is, right? They're very sharp, still sharp minds.
Yeah.
Okay. And they are doing work in individual capacity, correct?
Yeah.
And on the other side, you have sort of these young, hopeful researchers,
Yeah.
perhaps are not, didn't ace an exam at the right time or something like that. So they are not, let's say, at an IIT Delhi or an IIT Mumbai, but are clearly
Right.
showing signs of, uh, you know, innovation and entrepreneurship, all, I mean, or great science.
Yeah.
There should be a way to put these together and enable people to do science research in a far more democratic manner.
Yeah.
It would be great if some sort of endowment can be put together to help these are and help them sort of freely do science even outside corporate settings, and we can choose a purpose. It has to be along some lines. I mean, this is something that still cooking in my mind, and I would love to be sort of part of a social initiative or something like, which does something about it.
Yeah.
I'm surprised an hour is done, but I could talk and I could go on, go on talking and so much more to cover, but
Right. Right. Right.
sort of covered the main issues that are probably on my mind.
Okay, great. That's actually it's more than an hour, but that's it's okay.
Yeah,
I think I want to talk to you offline, but
yeah,
at this time, I would say my practice is to ask each speaker to have the final word, the final message or that you want to convey. And so the final word, and then we'll talk offline. So let's have that from you.
See, there's a statement which says that I think, therefore I am.
Yes.
If intelligence is gonna get replaced, then is it I think, therefore I am? Or is it something else we do, which is the essence of being a human being?
Yeah.
This is a profound question.
Yeah.
Perhaps an answer for it may not be found
Yeah.
at work or in research, perhaps at home, but this is a question that we perhaps need to ponder on.
Yeah.
I think innovations will keep happening,
Yeah.
technology will keep advancing,
Yeah.
but human society is improved with intent,
Yeah.
just with technology.
Okay. All right.
Thank
Well,
you.
thank you so much, Shirish. It was so wonderful to hear you talk about all these new technologies coming our way, and from a person who's an insider in the game, not an outsider, because actually they mystify the outsiders. You are the insider and you know what is going on. So thank you so much for this. Let's end it here today. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Till then, don't go away. I want to talk to you offline. Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot, Subbu, for doing this.
Bye
Take
bye.
care.
Bye.
Bye.